Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Welcome to News Talk with yours truly, Chris Anu, coming to you as usual from the great state of Texas, Houston, Texas, to be precise. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I come to you very excited with a piece of information I believe is waiting to be released in the La République du Cameroon, talking about who becomes the vice president or the successor of incumbent Paul Biya. But before we get there, please, I'd like you to go ahead, hit that subscription bell or hit the follow button on your screen if you are watching by way of Facebook, and so that every time we are live, you are one of the first to receive notifications about the show. Again, thank you for tuning in. It is going to be very, very exciting for tonight. And so before I delve into the subject of the day, I'd like you to stay put. I will be right back.
Have you noticed? The world is changing faster than ever before.
Artificial intelligence is transforming workplaces, creating new opportunities, and reshaping entire industries.
The question is no longer whether AI will impact your career. The question is, will you be ready? At Certified AI Academy, we're helping ordinary people gain extraordinary skills in just 8 weeks.
Unlike many programs that leave you alone with recorded videos, our classes are taught live by experienced instructors.
You will learn practical AI skills you can immediately apply at work, in business, or to launch a new career.
And we don't stop at training. We help with resume development, job search support, and connecting graduates with opportunities.
Many AI jobs today can be performed remotely from anywhere in the world.
Our next session begins July 24th. Seating is limited.
To enroll, text AI to 346-271-0711 or visit certifiedaiacademy.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, once more, thank you for tuning in and good evening. Tonight, I will take you to an insightful story that is happening in Geneva, talking about the visit of Franck Biya from Monaco to Geneva, where the subject of his coronation as vice president after his father was the subject of discussion according to international reports. I will also take you to Ambazonia, precisely to FACO, where Ambazonia restoration fighters, FACO unity warriors in particular, are leaving a mark on the army of La République du Cameroon. Only a few days ago, the FACO Unity Warriors once more ambushed about 4 Cameroon soldiers, and what happened to them is not very clear, but what we know is will be seen in the video I bring to you. And then we will also discuss a story that is developing in Le BLM over the controversy involving Seat of Wisdom College, Fontem, and my panel will weigh in. John Ba Akuro will be here, Metro Lisenge will be here, and Terence Atem will be here to discuss the Le BLM story, ladies and gentlemen. So that will be the subject for discussion tonight. Of course, tonight I will open the phones for you to call in, make your contributions on these issues. So let me start from Ambazonia, FACO in particular, where Ambazonia restoration fighters dealt a mark on the army of La République du Cameroon. Of course, this wasn't the first time. We have seen again and again how FACO unity warriors take the world to the front lines. And here I mean the army, the front lines where you have the army of La République du Cameroon, not only decimating them but confiscating their weapons. In this case, this happened just a few days ago. I think this was Friday. Take a look, ladies and gentlemen, and listen to their video. Listen to what they say.
All for one. One for all. Asawana. Asawana. Asabwam. Isimili. Okay, today the 19th of June 2026. Be it Friday. Now walk the way the Unity Warriors for Fako Meme, they don't do them. For inside Moyoka LGA. Likoko, my 14 Likoko precisely. Where the terrorist regime the doka put back say they want fight Amber. As the work I say for put sub back then at the issue, me they go ahead put them. Make them know say Amber. The word Amber no be na child's play. Ambazonian na Ambazonian. Yes, me they know say Ambazonian na Ambazonian. Yes. From the day we come off our houses being 10 years today. Carriage now will not come on now because say we miss na road. We come out because we mean business. Yeah, so me they know the ways at time they tell civilian they say me they tell we say much got our weapon. If they go fit kill all we, me they kill them. But if they know fit kill all we, me they know say we will fight the last man standing. Yes. We just beg and advise and say me they know they take the war go now for civilians them. Me they take the war go for Amber fighters them. As Amber fighters they take the war come for them. Don't be so. Yes. So all man way come over the mission, all the fighters them wanna place their day. Asawana. Asawana. Asabwam. Isimili. Amber fighters, I want to ask you a question. Una go ever tire? Una go ever tire? Una play.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, you are watching the art of
Asawana, Asawana, Asabwam, Isimili.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, you are watching the emerging art of Fako last Friday. And again, it is important to note that this is not the first time we are seeing this. We have seen this again and again and again and again, emerging from Fako Unity Warriors. Now, often when we see action like this from Ambazonia fighters, restoration fighters, whether they are Unity Warriors or whatever warriors, you see some people rush, some groups out there who are just interested in propaganda. You see them rush, pick videos, footages like this one, and they put their emblem on it. I have seen the Sako guy is very much in the habit of doing that. Yet, ladies and gentlemen, when you hear the commentary, you listen to the commentary emerging from these videos, these guys, they call themselves Fako Unity Warriors. They do not identify with any group out here in the diaspora. They do not identify with any group in the diaspora. But you must have observed that every time these guys go out, perform or carry out an action like this one, Sako put an emblem on it and claim it. Sako is doing exactly what the ADF used to do, Ayaba used to do, without supporting any of them, sponsoring any of them. In fact, I remember they put out a disclaimer not too long ago saying they don't have fighters. They don't have fighters on the ground. Of course, I understand what they were trying to do. They don't want to be arrested in America. They are so scared. They don't want to be arrested in America. So, but then when actions like this take place, they take the emblem of their group and put on it, claiming it as if they did it or they sponsor it, doing exactly what we condemn the ADF for doing. Let's move on from there, ladies and gentlemen. That is not the most important point here. The most important point here is, I believe that for 10 years, 10 solid years, every Southern Cameroonian, every Ambazonian has seen the intransigence of La République du Cameroon. Essentially, Cameroon is not ready to sit on the table to dialogue. They are not prepared for any negotiations. And you recall that they took off the position of the vice president in 1984, I believe. It was 1984, or was it 1986? And the constitution indicated that whoever becomes the vice president of the country has to be, and if the president is francophone, the vice must be anglophone. If the president is anglophone, the vice should be francophone. That was what the constitution stated. But you see, as if nothing is going on, as if there's been no war, as if the country is at peace, La République just continues to do what they know the most. That is to marginalize the English-speaking position, at least those who still believe in that country, like the Agbo Balas, the Akere Monas, the Joshua Osis, and so on, who still believe in one and indivisible Cameroon. But the point I am trying to make here is that in spite of a 10-year war that resulted from marginalization, annexation, call it anything, La République remains so insensitive. They are still considering a vice president to take over from Biya from one of their own, particularly the son of Paul Biya. What that tells us is they are not ready. They are not ready to quell the rage, the wrath that has been in Ambazonians for the past 10 years. And so, realizing that, I think if there is any Southern Cameroonian or Ambazonian out there who isn't supporting these boys, then you're not interested in your own freedom. You are not interested in your own freedom. Now you listen to these boys out there with all these actions they're carrying out, confiscating equipment from La République du Cameroon, trained soldiers, trained army. And you sit here and you fold your hands and you are excited, but you don't support them. How do you think they can remain resilient and take this war to the logical end for a free and independent Southern Cameroons? How can they do it without your support? We have made it very clear to these fighters, do not pay allegiance to any group in the diaspora. And that is why you are hearing unity warriors emerging all over the place. They are on their own. They are uniting on their own, resourcing on their own to confront a state-trained army. And they are doing just good. La République cannot say this war is over. They cannot say no mercy is returning because of boys and actions like this. You ought to be supporting them. You ought to be supporting them. They are fighting for you. They are fighting for your children. They are fighting for the next generation. Some of us have been here advocating for them and for Ambazonia's freedom, Southern Cameroon's independence for the past 10 years. I am not fighting for my mother who is dead. I am not fighting for my father who is dead. I am not fighting for any family member who is in La République du Cameroon. I am fighting because it is the right thing to do. We have seen the pain, we have seen the suffering, we have seen the annexation and the colonization and the marginalization. And sometimes somebody has to fight for somebody. That is what freedom is all about. If we cannot fight for somebody, maybe apartheid will still be here today. If Nelson Mandela thought he was too old, you know what, let me go and enjoy my family. Apartheid will still be in place. Not every one of us will go on the ground and fight. Some will fight with their mouth as I do here. Some will fight with their microphones as I do here. Some will fight with money. Some have the money to send to them directly to say, you know what? Until victory is here, we are not giving up on you. Encourage them. That is what we owe them. That is what every Southern Cameroonian, call yourself Anglophone, Southern Cameroonian or Ambazonian, that is what you owe them. And stop saying that, oh, there is so much pain on the ground. There is no war without pain. There is no liberation without pain. Pain is a part of it. Of course, you know, I am the highest advocate, ladies and gentlemen, of civil approach. I am one of those who have won here and even called out fighters who go after our own civilians, our own people. That should never be the case. That should never happen. The idea of abduction, ransom taking, killings of our own people, it should never happen. The war is against La République du Cameroon, ladies and gentlemen. And so, the rogue fighters out there picking up our people, taking ransoms and torturing them, again, they are not fighting for Ambazonia, they are not fighting for the Southern Cameroon. Boys like this deserve your support, our support, every one of our support. And that is that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will take you to the main subject of the day. But before I do that, please stay tuned for a brief break. When I come back, I take you to Geneva, where Franck Biya is now well positioned to become Vice President of La République du Cameroon. Vice President of La République du Cameroon. Stay put, I'll be right back.
Have you noticed? The world is changing faster than ever before.
Artificial intelligence is transforming workplaces, creating new opportunities, and reshaping entire industries.
The question is no longer whether AI will impact your career. The question is, will you be ready? At Certified AI Academy, we're helping ordinary people gain extraordinary skills in just 8 weeks.
Unlike many programs that leave you alone with recorded videos, our classes are taught live by experienced instructors.
You will learn practical AI skills you can immediately apply at work, in business, or to launch a new career.
And we don't stop at training. We help with resume development, job search support, and connecting graduates with opportunities.
Many AI jobs today can be performed remotely from anywhere in the world.
Our next session begins July 24th. Seating is limited.
To enroll, text AI to 346-271-0711 or visit certifiedaiacademy.com.
Have you noticed? The world is changing fast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, I take you to a story that is emerging out of Switzerland, Geneva, to be precise. You all recall that only a few weeks ago, precisely, I think that was June 7, Paul Biya took off for Switzerland. He took off for Switzerland. We were told he was taking off for a vacation, but apparently it is more than a vacation if you consider the people involved. So let me put it this way. Did Paul Biya's trip to Geneva involve more than medical consultation? As questions continue to swirl around the Cameroonian president's health, new reports suggest that crucial discussions about succession may have taken place behind closed doors in Geneva, Switzerland. Was Geneva merely a medical trip or medical stop, or the place where Franck Biya's political future was quietly sealed? In this monologue that I bring to you shortly, I am going to examine the latest revelations, the government's response, and what Cameroonians should watch. What Cameroonians should watch when Mr. Biya returns from Europe, returns from Geneva, ladies and gentlemen, that is what this monologue is all about. Please put the script there on the screen. Put the script on the screen, please. So let's get to that talking point now, ladies and gentlemen. Please get the script out there on the monitor. All right. In a recent monologue on this platform, ABS, I reported that Paul Biya's sudden trip to Switzerland was not unconnected to what happened at the Unity Palace on May 20th. I told you then that the collapse during the National Day or National 20th May festivities in Etoudi Unity Palace was a trigger, the moment that accelerated a departure that had already been medically advised for weeks. That reporting has now been confirmed in remarkable details by none other than Jeune Afrique in the story titled Paul Biya in Switzerland, Behind the Scenes of a New Medical Stay. The magazine, which has better sources inside the Cameroonian Presidency than most journalists inside Yaoundé itself, laid out the sequence with surgical precision. The fall on May 20th of Paul Biya, the blackout order on the incident, the medical aircraft that staged in Equatorial Guinea for discretion, the 5 days it sat on the tarmac at Isimaland Airport waiting for a president who wasn't ready to board, and the eventual quiet departure on June 7. Moving on, but I want to be clear, this monologue is not about the fall. It is not about the hospitalization. We know about those now already. What I want to talk about today are the other implications, the ones nobody seems willing to name out loud. And let us start with the government's response to Jeune Afrique's reporting. Communication Minister René Emmanuel Sadi stood up on June 18 and told the world that President Paul Biya is indeed in Geneva, as if anyone needed any confirmation of that. But that he is not hospitalized, he said. And then, in the very same breath, the minister added that Biya may, and I quote, take advantage of his stay to undergo simple medical consultations. Now, pause there for a moment. Stop right there, because this is the part that should make everyone serious, any serious person furious, not at Jeune Afrique, but at the government itself. If Paul Biya of Cameroon is in Geneva attending medical consultations, which the minister just admitted is entirely possible, then the question is, what exactly is the denial about? Are people seriously being asked to split hairs between hospitalization and medical consultations, as though those are two entirely different universes? The man is 93 years old. He is the oldest sitting non-royal head of state on the planet. If he is receiving medical attention in Switzerland, what is shameful about saying so? What is the Republic protecting by refusing to speak plainly about it? The opacity does not protect Biya's dignity. It destroys the government's credibility. A simple, honest statement would read like this, quote, the president is in Geneva attending to his health. He is being well looked after and he will return shortly. This would have closed the story in 24 hours. Instead, the ministry chose a denial so riddled with qualifications that it confirmed everything while admitting nothing. That is not communication. That is a regime talking to itself. Now, let us talk about what is truly not being discussed. Because the medical dimension, as significant as it is, may actually be the secondary story here. Who did Biya travel with? He left Yaoundé accompanied by his wife, Chantal, Vice Admiral Joseph Fude, and the Director of the Civil Cabinet, Samuel Mvodo Ayolo. That is not a vacation travel party. That is a working delegation. And then Jeune Afrique drops the detail that should have stopped every analyst in their tracks. Franck Biya, the president's son, the man whose name sits at the very top of the shortlist for a brand new vice presidency that Cameroon has not had since 1984, was in Monaco. And he was expected to travel to Geneva for a working session with his father, specifically focused on the vice presidency. Let that sink. So here is a question I am putting directly to you today. Could it be that this Swiss trip was never simply about a fall or a knee or a medical consultation? Could it be that Paul Biya, whether you believe the vacation theory, the checkup theory, or the convalescence theory, equally needed distance, quiet, and altitude to do something he cannot do inside the noise of Yaoundé? Could it be that what is being quietly arranged in a private clinic or a Geneva hotel suite right now is the most consequential political decision Cameroon has faced in 4 decades? The former architecture of a dynastic transfer of power? Think about the timing. The vice presidency post has sat vacant for over 2 months since the constitutional amendment that created it. Military appointments are frozen. The Superior Council of the Magistracy remains unconvened. The entire machinery of the Cameroonian state is in a holding pattern, waiting, as it always does, for one man to speak. And that man is currently in Geneva with his son, traveling from Monaco to meet him, and his cabinet director managing the files back home. The question is no longer whether Franck Biya will be vice president. That conversation among those who follow Cameroonian politics seriously has already moved past if. The question is when, and whether the announcement comes the moment his father's plane touches down on the tarmac at Insimalen. Could Paul Biya be flying home, not just from a medical stay, but from a succession summit? Could Geneva be where the dynasty was sealed? Watch the return. Watch it very carefully. Because what happens in the first 72 hours after Paul Biya lands back in Cameroon may tell us everything about what was really decided in Switzerland, far from the noise, far from the factions, and far from the cameras in Yaoundé. And that is a talking point, ladies and gentlemen. I will now bring you my panel that is joining me from London, from the USA. I am being joined from the US by Comrade Jeune by Akuro. Comrade, centralize your camera, please. Centralize yourself in camera. And I'm also being joined from Europe, the United Kingdom, by Maitre Alex Lissinger. Good to have you, Comrade Jeune, but let me start from you, please. It seems your microphone is muted, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, you
It's
are
okay.
good now. So,
Yeah.
good to have you back here. You listened to my monologue apparently, and I know this is a subject we've been dealing with recently on your podcast too. The idea of Franck Biya traveling from Monaco to Geneva to meet Ayolo Mvondo, his father, and the rest, as reported by Jeune Afrique, to discuss the subject of the vice presidency. Do you see any doubt that that is what is happening in Switzerland?
Well, Cameroon is a country of several wonders, and so you cannot discount anything. If they have to be calling Franck Biya to visit Paul Biya, but in Switzerland, because of course that's something that I also got wind of. I think I reported that even a day or so before I saw it in Jeune Afrique. If Biya is requesting Frank to come meet him right there, so they should talk the issue of vice presidency, you definitely should understand that that means his health has entered the very precarious quarters. That means that his situation is, not only so bad, but maybe even worse than what Jeune Afrique is talking about. And you notice, this is not the first time that he's traveling and they're talking about his health, or the first time that they've been talking about his health seriously lately. If you find that Rene Emmanuel Sadi had to come out to, rebut and claim that he did not go for medical treatment, he went on holiday and all of those things, and even tried to claim that he did not fall at the Unity Palace on 20th May. You understand, this is a government that generally prevails a lot in cover-up. But there's something that you need to know. Paul Biya did not fail to make the appointment of Franck Biya as vice president while he was still in Cameroon because he was busy. No, it's because there are roadblocks. It's because the infighting is intense. And the infighting is not very far off. The infighting is right within the palace, even within the family itself. So with Chantal Biya out there, who doesn't want to hear that Frank will be the vice president and all of those, I don't know how it's going to happen. And right now, you and I know that the person really calling the shot seriously right now is Chantal. Chantal doesn't, from palace sources that I've got more than enough, Chantal doesn't economize her energy in reminding Paul Biya that this new 7-year mandate is absolutely her mandate, because he didn't want it, didn't work any much towards it. So she did the whole thing with Ferdinand Gongo, and so she believes very strongly that he really should not have a lot of input in the whole matter. And so because she has a very strong grip on the Secretariat General of the Presidency, so she harasses the channels through which those things will, pass, through which those things will be treated. And so, of course, that the presidency is clearly divided among ethnic lines. You have the civil cabinet, which is made up of the Bulus, which is run by the Bulus seriously, and then supported of some few Ewondos. And then you have the Secretariat General, which is run by the Nangas. The Nangas, the Chantal Biya people, and all of those things. So you have that very strong divide, and it is for the same reason that 6 months down the line, since Biya announced on the 31st of December 2025 that he was going to appoint a new government in the days ahead, the days ahead have become 6 months. And you know that on the 10th of February, because already in February they noticed that the anxiety was too much, he even reiterated that promise that a new government was coming out in the days ahead, and promised to appoint more youths and women. But that government is still not coming out. So will he skip over that government to go ahead and appoint just for the position of a vice president? That is still, a serious issue on the table. And do not also discount a very serious constitutional issue that appointment creates. Because once he appoints, and now that you have people like Issa Chiruma Bakari and others taking him before international instances, that particular the office holder will be seriously contested, because there's a principle of law which says that the law cannot be retroactive unless the law itself explicitly clarifies that these particular articles could be applied retroactively. But that's not what happened to this particular amendment. We're talking here of a presidential mandate. When Paul Biya presented himself before the people of Cameroon for another 7-year mandate, it was not with the understanding that he was going to be able to appoint a vice president who will have the power to complete that mandate. So this is something extremely sensitive, and this is something that should have constitutional basis. So it means that that position should have been created prior to that particular election. And then he could go ahead and take whoever he was taking as a running mate. And then at the end of it all, he could, whether if he dies or he decides to resign or step aside, and that person will complete his mandate. But to take a mandate from the people elected him alone. In the case that we say he was elected, but we know he stole the election. And he stole the election for himself alone. That is a mandate he cannot suddenly decide to say, this elective mandate, I've decided to share it with this or that person who will have the power to, that is, arrogating to himself the power to appoint the next president. That normally should not work. This vice presidential position should, in normal circumstances, in a country that respects the laws, in a state of law, that particular provision will only take effect with the next presidential election, because that is when it could, it will make sense. But because we are talking here about a banana republic, that's why you see the fighting all over the place for that position of vice president. And I don't know if Franck Biya understands that it is a tool that is definitely going to be where he is going to be very ejectable. Because a lot of the people who have stolen money in that country in billions, they're not stealing that money because they're hungry. Not stealing that money because they feel that they have enough time to go around gallivanting with that money. They needed that money to fight when the time comes. Because the way the system operates right now, there are too many of those, those barons in Yaoundé with a lot of billions of CFA stashed in their accounts. Some of them even have caches of weapons already buried in various locations in the center, waiting for the ultimate moment. So I don't know if Frank thinks that he has the bone enough to be able to withstand that. But that is in the event that he succeeds to cross the Chantal hurdle. Because as long as Chantal remains the last person that sees Biya and plays the role of gatekeeper, sometimes barring even the director of civil cabinet from meeting Biya, I wonder how this appointment will go through. And do not forget that Chantal already has strict instructions to at CRTV. Right at CRTV, Usha Ndongo, who knows that his continuous stay as director general now depends on Chantal Biya. If they read anything that she has not approved of, he's leaving the next day. So those are the things. I'm sure you've heard tales of how appointments have been prepared and sent to CRTV already to be broadcast and then called back. Oh yes, that's what is happening.
Now, my only concern is when you look at the delegation that accompanied Biya to Geneva, none of them is in the camp of, as you all know, as you and I know of the different camps. Ayolo Mvondo is not in the Frank's camp. Chantal, of course, is not, and the other guy, is it Fuda somebody? These are people in Chantal's camp. I don't then understand how it is possible.
No, I think Chris. No, I think you are a bit mixed up there. No, okay. Mvondo Ayolo is effectively in Franck Biya's camp. Mvondo Ayolo is okay. And Mvondo Ayolo is the opposing camp. So Mvondo Ayolo mans the civil cabinet. The civil cabinet is manned by the Bulus, while the Secretariat General is manned by the Nangas. And so do not forget that even right there at the civil cabinet, Chantal also ensured that she sent someone there who will be her eyes and ears right at the civil cabinet, which is manned by the Bulus as deputy director of the civil cabinet. That is Oswald Baboke. So nothing is left to chance. And do not forget, Chantal herself is right there in Switzerland. She doesn't even need many people to be there, because the delegation people were named on the official document saying these are the delegation members. That is the official list. But there are tons of people who are in Switzerland whose names did not appear on that list. and who are there for specific reasons, playing specific roles, and making sure that they are doing the gatekeeping job that they are supposed to do. So that
my
fight,
question,
fight is intense, and it is not like there is child's play around it. No, because on the contrary, Chantal, Franck actually suspects so seriously that Georges Gilbert Baonla, who says he's the real biological son of Paul Biya, Franck suspects that Chantal is actually supporting Georges Gilbert Baonla, not because she really thinks that he should be the next president, but because that gives her the opportunity to knock heads. Because she too is prompting her own son, Franck Hertz, who is definitely Paul Biya's adoptive son. If Paul Biya could adopt Franck Emmanuel Biya, because Franck Emmanuel Biya is no longer a secret to anyone. It's not Paul Biya's son. So if Paul Biya could adopt Franck Emmanuel Biya and is willing to give him power, why not also give the power to Franck Hertz, who is even Chantal's own son? So the dynamics are really complicated. Paul Biya created a system, a serious cobweb system that enabled him to hold everyone in the country in check. And at the end of the day, he is being swallowed himself now by that very system. He has been taken hostage now by the very system he created at the time when he's at his most vulnerable ebb. It is true that France definitely does support the candidature of Franck Biya, not because they think that he is the person most better place to run the country, but because they believe that that is at least someone that could create some level of consensus within the Bulu-Beti clan. But they have an obstacle before them, and that obstacle is Chantal Biya. That is why you notice that even if they activated the judiciary machinery against Georges Gilbert Baonla, it's going nowhere, because there are even people within the presidential family in Vomeka who are also vouching for Georges Gilbert Baonla.
Now, and that leads me to, when you talk about Chantal Biya, that leads me to the next question. How can Chantal Biya be in Geneva and Franck Biya is being discussed as the presidential takeover?
You should be able to understand these dynamics. Chantal will simply see that as wishful thinking. You definitely heard before, when this information leaked, that Biya was at the verge of making that appointment while in Yaoundé, and Chantal got to the third floor of the Unity Palace and gave Paul Biya marching orders and brought everything to a halt. Even the government that they were about discussing how to form a new government, Chantal brought everything to a halt. She's capable of doing anything, anywhere, any day, anytime, right now. She runs the country. There's nothing anybody can do about it. She runs the country. And her closeness to Ferdinand Gongo and the grip that Ferdinand Gongo has on the government apparatus right now, do not forget, a good lot of the last generation ministers who were appointed into the government when Ferdinand Gongo was already Secretary General were mostly brought in by Ferdinand Gongo, and they pay allegiance to him and to Chantal Biya. And so therefore, that's why you see that the government itself is divided in a very critical manner. Those who pay allegiance to Biya through the civil cabinet, and those who believe in Ferdinand Gongo and Chantal Biya as their gods. So this is the problem. This is where the country is right now. It's not that easy. If it were easy, Paul Biya would already have named a new government. But right now, even that government is not coming out, and it may not come out. And if they have to hold elections again now, they know, the general elections, they know that it will be chaos all over the place, because there will be no agreement on who should represent the CPDM party where. That's why the CPDM party is doing everything to avoid any elections until Biya's death. That's why you see they caused their parliament to literally give Paul Biya, the power to extend the mandates of local elected officials ad infinitum. And that's going to go on and on and on and on. Maurice Kamto tried to, challenge that through the Constitutional Council, and of course, you know the answer, right? You can chorus it, irreservable.
Hold on there, John. Let me bring in Alex Lissinger into this conversation. Maitre Lissinger, I guess the appointment of an Anglophone vice president is very apparent if Franck Biya is the new vice president. Am I wrong?
Thank you, Chris, and it's always a pleasure to be on your platform, and my warm greetings to John Koro. Chris, to be honest, sometimes it has been my policy not to talk about Franck Biya because Franck Biya doesn't talk to us. It saddens me today to stand on your platform to be talking about people who do, as they call it in French, la politique de silence. And I made it clear, people were saying that they should appoint an Anglophone as vice president. I was laughing. Why? Because we all know France, Afrique. I've been reading about this Gabon, Liomba, the first president of Gabon, long ago. When he was terminally ill, France told him to create the position of a vice president. That I knew long ago, years ago, that's what will happen in Cameroon. There are difficulties because we have West Cameroon, we Anglophones. So I knew this will happen. So at the end of the day, as you rightly said, the point is, they know we have had 2 deaths. Nyat, they remove him. What happened? They knew that Nyat was dying. The doctor told them. He died after 1 week. Kavayejibi, they knew he was dying. So what happened? They removed him. He died within a month. They know that, let me make this clear. There's Mr. Biya and there's President of the Republic. In constitutional law, I'm talking about the President of the Republic. We have the right to talk about the President of a Republic. It's an institution, it's not an individual. So they know right now when Mr. Biya, how long Mr. Biya have got. So they created that position. Then I saw, which sometimes I'm critical, sometimes I'm controversial, because people say they should put an Anglophone. I was laughing. They don't need to appoint any person. They will know when Biya is going, or they might even wait. They might announce it some few days before Biya, I don't know, I'm just giving my theory, pass away. Then they'll put somebody like a Francophone, is Cameroonian. And when they put them there, what happens? He will appoint an Anglophone now. Then you know they're always gerrymandering, they always play with their constitution. When you're there as an Anglophone vice, this have happened before. Foncha was supposed to take over from Aijo. Then later on, they brought it National Assembly Mona. Then they brought Prime Minister, kick an Anglophone out. So they can always put an Anglophone when the person, let me say as we are saying, Franck Biya takes over. Then they can bring an Anglophone later on that you are vice now. But again, they always change their constitution. It doesn't guarantee anything. When the time comes to do whatsoever, they will change it again. Because we can see this. There's nothing strange to me because I know the modus operandi, how France, Afrique, they operate. Because at the end of the day, 2 months ago, I made something, I said that before they created that position, they already know that is a position for Franck Biya. Yes, you guys are right to be talking about a Chantal Biya or whatsoever. The problem with Chantal Biya is that if Franck Biya is there, she's no longer the first lady, she's finished. She will be going to France, her homeland. So that is the problem at the moment because they are stuck at some point. They have no choice. They have to put somebody there. Again, my theory again, I do what will happen. It will be very difficult for Franck Biya to be the president of the Cameroons. Why? Franck Biya has never been a minister or vice president.
But you they care about that. But you think they care about that? They care about protecting their look.
Let me learn. I was supposed to make an important point. Okay. Look at what is happening in Equatorial Guinea. The president is already there for a long time, vice president. Most of the military, there is people. The ministers are the vice president's people. His father is just a figurehead. So at the end of the day, if you put somebody like Franck Biya there, he doesn't command the military or anything. It will be very, very dangerous for him because what will happen, you will see a Gabon. What happened in Gabon? That's what I see plainly and that's what I know. But it's a disgrace that the majority of the Cameroonians who are from East Cameroon La Republic, they have sat there, they watch this thing happening, they just run their mouth on social media for a long time, and they have never ever realized, ever since they changed the federal constitution, changed Article 47, we have been the minority to be fighting for change, whether it's multipartism, whether it's Biya University, who fight for this, they give them decentralization, they give us the same thing. They are the problem, the people, their mentality. Mr. Biya have mastered them and understand these people from La Republique are donkeys. They don't have brains. They come and shout. They have followers. Few of them can stand and tell me, what have they done? I remember Mongo Betty was good. You have one or two people from La Republique who are good. But the majority are the most foolish people on planet Earth. And that is why all through my life, I've stood. We have a right to self-determination. It's not a mistake ever since that I was a boy, a young boy. I said, we cannot live with these people. It's not a mistake. It's my passion. I'll fight for it until the day I die. You made it clear that people can fight in different ways. You can fight by talking as we are talking. You can fight in different ways. That's fighting. You have people like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Montesquieu, or Alexis de Tocqueville. People fight in different ways. And you also made a very vital point that you are not fighting for your mother. You are not fighting for your dad. And I'm saying the same thing. I am comfortable in the United Kingdom. I sit here and I fight for you people, you keep quiet. Oh, they will kill us. We fought for Biya University, we were never killed. We fought for multipartism, we were never killed. We fought for GCE board, we were never killed. You people just sit there, you drink your mimbo, you follow your woman. That is their entire life. And when we fight for Biya University, who are the people who want to benefit from it? The people who are insulting us. Multipartism. Name me one member of parliament in the Cameroons that was fighting with us for multipartism. They just like to consume. These are people that I look at the Cameroons. It can give you high blood. It's our country. I never came to this country to stay here for the rest of my life. It's people come here. The current is it the president of and prime minister is it of Canada? He was working here now. Is the people come here, gain some experience, and go back to their country. Our country is a no-go area. We have a problem, and people are happy for us to be here. And most people who are supporting this regime, who are the people? The people who are in government. They know that if Mr. Biya is not there, they are finished. Check most of them, whether you're a mayor, you're a senator, you're a member of National Assembly, they have criminal records. All of them, they will be flying out very soon so that I should be representing them for asylum if Mr. Biya is not there. So they want continuity. They want to see these people to remain there. They are not patriotic. You cannot go 180 members of parliament, the majority. You just change the constitution, no referendum whatsoever. I know the modus operandi of France, Afrique. You saw what happened when Idriss Deby was killed. What happened? They just made sure they put his son there. And what happened? Macron went right to Chad to install him. The president of France, Afrique went there. The de facto president of Cameroon, Gabon, Congo, all France, Africa went there. And we sit and look. Sometimes I ask myself, because I'm looking for a solution, there should be a time that most of us, we should be protesting at least once a month in the French embassy because France must go.
John, let me get back to you and get your take on this vice presidency appointment, because I have always thought the moment they appoint any francophone, be it Ngongo or Franck Biya, the idea will be, okay, once you get there, now appoint one of those Anglophones, to become your vice president. They will do that knowing that that Anglophone will never, ever become the president of that country. Is that the same thing you are seeing?
Well, Chris, I want to make one quick correction here. You know, I can tolerate it when those who say they are federalists or that they are unionists or whatever refer to us as Anglophones. When you, my comrade in arms, that we are standing on the same side and telling this whole nonsense of refer to ourselves as Anglophones, that's exactly what I don't agree with. Because the truth is, when you refer to yourself as an Anglophone, you give credence to, some of the reporting that, they've sold to the international media.
I get your point.
Just let me finish. Yes.
Hold on. I get your point. I get your point.
To the international media that gives the impression that what is going on.
Let's get it straight. When I use the word Anglophones, I'm referring to the Cameroonians, the Agbo-Balas, and the rest that you know. You and I are on a different path.
But Chris, that distinction is not known by the common man. So if, it's my point of view, okay? If we stick by the fact that because there are people in the international community who are watching you, who are watching us. They come to our platforms to try to understand what is happening in the southern Cameroons. And so we should make them understand what is going on is a territorial issue. It's not an issue of language. Because I saw an article published by a British news outlet once that said, a war over language. That war is not over language, because it should be clear to people that this is a territorial issue between the southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon. So if somebody says he's a southern Cameroonian, and you are there saying you are waiting to be appointed vice president, I think you should be delusional. Chris, I'm sure that you saw the initial draft of the project of law, or the initial draft of that particular law, to modify or to re-examine the constitution of Cameroon to insert that position of vice president. They initially, in the initial draft done by the La République du Cameroon constitutional experts, they were actually putting in that text that if the president is vice, if the president is from La République du Cameroon, the vice should be from Southern Cameroons. Right. They are reference to francophones and anglophones. Right. That particular text circulated. That initial draft circulated.
I saw that,
and that's what ignited some people to start, couching ambitions to start saying this person will be that. That's when you heard people talk about, it could be Young, it could be Musonge, it could be Jeune, it could be this, it could be that. But at some point, the French said you have to stop that nonsense. And so that the final draft was done when the Élysée dispatched 4 constitutional experts from France to travel to Yaoundé and worked at the direction of the French embassy in Yaoundé to prepare that final document that was inserted in the Cameroon constitution as being the creation of the position of vice president. On that, France was making it clear that those people you are referring to, what they call them Anglophones, call them Southern Cameroonians or what, in this triangle, they have no voice and they will never have a voice. If you recall what Harriet Ekwe has said on camera over and over, that in 1992, Frundi won the presidential election. All the chancelleries, that's all the diplomatic missions in Yaoundé knew that Frundi won the election, and cars were flying between Washington and Paris, and Paris was clear. I'm quoting Harriet Ekwe. Paris was clear that never ever will it happen that somebody of Southern Cameroon's extraction will be president in Cameroon. And so Harriet Ekwe said when the U.S. ambassador of the time, Frances Cook, called her, they were trying to persuade her to go and convince Mr. Frundi to accept the post of vice president, so that at least he should have access to files. He should have access to the key things that were happening and all of those things. So this should educate every single Southern Cameroonian that as long as you are born a Southern Cameroonian, inside that triangle, you have a power of limitation over your head, because France considers there are certain positions nobody from that part of the country will ever hold. And the French don't joke. When they come to those things, they don't clown with their national interests, because those things represent their national interests. So what are Southern Cameroonians hoping on? What is all this talk about? If they appoint, whether we call it Anglophone or whatsoever or whatnot, to this position? No, that will never happen. It will never happen. I really appreciate my brother, comrade Alex, who points out there that people who are daydreaming that whenever they even wanted to leave those kind of situations, they made sure that they shifted the goalposts at all times. Look at, when Paul Biya was prime minister, the prime minister's office was all powerful. But when they decided that the prime minister's office, even when Sadu Ayatu became prime minister, when Paul Biya decided to bring back the position of prime minister after eradicating it with, the exit of Bello Buba, when they created, when Sadu Ayatu was there, the texts were different. The place had a completely different, orientation. But from the moment they started bringing those people inside there, oh no, they always have to create counterweights. There you find that the Secretary General at the Prime Minister's office even wields more powers than the Prime Minister. That's why you find that they are creating a new company, and each administration is sending a representative into the board. Scarcely will you hear that the Prime Minister's office, which is headed by a Southern Cameroonian, has been able to send somebody of Southern Cameroon's extraction as the representative of the Prime Minister's office into those boards. I heard Agbobala come out recently screaming, shouting, oh, they did, is this, Sokadel, or is this Sokadef, or whatever that they have created, whether they wanted to say Sokadef and they ended up saying Sokadel. And Pudi said, oh, that board had to manage the country's energy sector, not a single person, not a single Anglophone, not a single person from Southern Cameroon's extraction. And I said, but there was a representative from the Prime Minister's office. If the Prime Minister's office was sending a representative into that board and did not get somebody from Southern Cameroon's extraction, who else did he expect where to get somebody in of Southern Cameroon's extraction? So you see that even at that point, the person that will prevail on making that choice will be the Secretary General at the Prime Minister's office. So when you sit there and you are going after all those sinecure positions and making fools of yourself, Comrade Alex said one very clear thing there. We are here trying to yoke with a people who don't have a culture of fighting for what they believe in. He talked of us fighting for the GCE board. Comrade Alex, when we fought for the GCE board, I was in Yaoundé, I saw our parents fought, some lost their eyes when they brought water cannons to spray water on them. Some lost limbs and all of those things. But at the end of the day, when Yaoundé was reacting, what did they do first? They first of all created the Office de Baccalaureate. That the La République people never asked for. That's what they did. Unfortunately, today, Nalo Valyonga has presided over the death and burial of the GCE board by giving them exactly what they had wanted all the time. Give with the right hand, collect with the left hand. And so therefore it has to dawn on the people of the Southern Cameroons that we are yoked with the people who don't know by their culture, by their education, how to stand up for what they believe in. And if we want to make our country a place to be, if we want to fight for our children not to find themselves dying in deserts, dying in jungles, being transformed into slaves in Nigeria, being trafficked in Nigeria because they are going to look for greener pastures elsewhere, we had better stand up and bloody fight to make sure we get these people out of our land. All this whole nonsense of who will be vice president, who will not be vice president, and all whatnot, it's a debate for another country, not even for us, because that whole thing will not concern us at the end of the day. For them, we are already ranked. For them, they've already placed us where we are. For them, they believe that it is their birthright to lord it over us, and that has to continue to be like that. You find that even in the midst of an ongoing war, of a raging war, they don't blink. When do you think that they are going to blink? Will it be when they've defeated you militarily? When I look into the eyes of our brothers, especially those who came out with a video recently, that they were the Fakomeme Unity Warriors. When I heard what they said, I said, this is a generation that these people just don't even understand. When they said, if you want to kill, you are going to kill all of us right up to the last man, because we went voluntarily to fight. Our people at the base understand what this whole thing is. And that is why they are not giving up. So we too should not. We really have to understand that the real fight for the people of the Southern Cameroon is not fighting to be this position or that position in La République du Cameroon. We don't belong. They don't think that we should be at the table. They think we should be in the kitchen.
Absolutely. And Mullah, what do you think is going to take these Anglophones, and I always like to make that distinction, the Agbo Balas, the Akeremonas, the Dion Gutes of the world, and so on, to realize that this position of a vice president isn't going. Look at what happened in Manfred the other day. Manu chiefs, they went and crowned Okala Bilai as the chief of chiefs in Manu. Prior to that were the Fako chiefs, and they forget this is the man who called them dogs. I'm sure you are very much aware of it. Not too long ago, Bernard Okalia referred to all of us, whether you call yourself Anglophone, one Cameroonian or Ambazonian, you are a dog in the opinion of Bernard Okalia. This is the same Bernard Okalia who forced those chiefs to take part in the march past as patriotic citizens, so-called, in his opinion. And then these same chiefs want us to believe if an Anglophone in their own terminology is just made vice president, these things will be over. The situation where colonial officers come around and dictate to them and take away their titles and their lands and so on will be over. What kind of education is going to take for them to realize no matter what position they occupy in that country, it is not going to change the destiny of the common man on the street?
Yeah, Chris, before I answer your question, I should tell you this. There's something very important when we talk about Anglophone. I don't look at the difference. Why? Because when I go to Hansard, Hansard is the British Parliament verbatim record. When you say Anglophone in Cameroon, it's in the British Parliament. They are talking about Northwest and Southwest, Southern Cameroon. That's what their record. I understand people can write article and say, oh, it's a language, it's ignorance because of them. As a journalist, as John Bakuru said, you should do your research well. I look at what is in British Parliament, their record. When you say Anglophone, you click Hansard, it's there, it's got a website, and say Anglophone, they will tell you that is, whether you call it Ambazonia or what, that's what they know as Anglophone officially in this country. So my point, I will tell you, Chris, it is very difficult sometimes. All of us cannot focus on the same side. Sometimes I don't like to talk about people when they are not on this platform. But I'll tell you on this platform, Agobala was my classmate in Wakere Yaoundé University. I don't look at him as a person of integrity. I don't look at him as a person who have conviction or probity. Why? Based on his action. You cannot say at one moment, although I'm not supporting that they are Anglophone candidate because I knew you cannot defeat Biya. You say you want an Anglophone candidate. Anglophone candidate was there. I was not supporting that the election. I'm just explaining the scenario. Joshua Osei is an Anglophone. The next minute you were not of Cameroon, running behind Issa Chiruma. So you don't, they say, if you don't stand for anything, a person who doesn't stand for anything will fall for anything. So why did he, if he believed in an Anglophone candidate, why did he not follow Joshua Osei? Joshua Osei was my classmate in CPC Bali, although with no reason he doesn't see eye to with me. In John Frundi's house, he asked me to step down that chair. I don't know, because I'm criticizing the CPDM and is annoyed because I'm criticizing the CPDM, which I know is a satellite party of CPDM. I know that for a fact. So my point is, some of these people, we cannot control anybody. That's how in life. In life, you always have people who will be fighting for their stomach. You can never stop that. But however, what we should do, we have a voice. There are a lot of people who believe in the self-determination of the people of British Southern Cameroon, West Cameroon. So that's what's important to me. You have to study people. I study people's character to me in life. And I look what they believe in. And you can't stop them. They are an adult. They do what they do. And let me tell you something. Mr. Agobala was in prison. He was arrested. You don't know what they said to him before they released him behind the scene. So I know how the La Republique government functions. So sometimes they will tell you something, go out and be behaving like this. And they have to do it. Because it's a fact. So I don't bother about those type of people. I know how the government functions. I was here when they were arrested, all of them, in Fontainebleau. I slept in front of the London La République Embassy in a cold winter. But ask Bala, my classmate, he has never come and said, I heard you do this, thank you. But he will not do that. So I understand the system. Some people believe that we need what? Position. As John Bakru made it clear, we need to reconstruct whether it's the Cameroons or British Saudi Cameroon from scratch. If you look, I keep on giving this example. There are so many of them. Look at Jeune Philomon. At the age of 27, he was prosecutor in the appeal court in Boya. Then vice prime minister of Minat Territorial Administration, 27 years old. Then 20 years as an ambassador in Canada. Then almost 10 years as prime minister in the Cameroons. Then 1 year as president of the General Assembly. Ask Jeune Philomon, all those positions, how has it helped one Anglophone? When I mean general, the public, I'm not talking you giving somebody's job, a job. So people don't learn that a position is for an individual. It's not for the community, it's not for the country. They don't see that. We need reforms. We need to know that two countries came together. We need to tell La République that yes, we were created as what? Trusteeship countries. Because country is about political authority, population, and territory. You don't need to be independent to be a country. I keep on repeating this because I'm in the United Kingdom. There are 4 countries in the United Kingdom, and they are not independent. So that's how we were. We were like United Kingdom in the Cameroons. We had our own parliament. La République had their own parliament. We had a prime minister. They had their own. Same to Scotland and England. They had their own parliament and blah, blah. But at some point in time, some Scottish people, they say, no, we want our parliament back. They gave it to them. So we have decentralization, transfer of power. But in the Cameroons, they tell us that we have decentralization. I laugh. In Scotland, they have separate ministers in Scotland. Separate, separate, they have their own money. They have their own football team. But they are in United Kingdom. But in the Cameroons, they are imposing us administrators. When we need politicians to be our governors, how can you live in America there, how can you take somebody from another part of the country, from East Cameroon, to go and be a governor in Boya Southwest region or Northwest region? How can you do that? So the Cameroon is just a fictitious continuation of slavery. That is why they kill people like Ernest Wanzi, Nyobe, Felix Mumi, and put these impostors that they are there in the Cameroons today. There's one prime minister in La République Cameroon, André Marimbida. He was against France, and France kicked him out and put Ahidjo because Ahidjo was a poodle. It was planned before their so-called independence. And after that, Mr. Ahidjo imprisoned the first prime minister of La République to Cameroon. It was a continuation of colonialism. And in 2026, we are still colonized. So I look at it at a broader basis. We are in trouble. And I don't know how we get ourselves into this trouble. And we need to look for a solution. I believe it's easier for West Cameroon, British Southern Cameroon, to have independence than for France to accept to give you federalism. A lot of people talk about these Cameroons. They don't know the system, how they operate, the modus operandi. To me, I knew about this long ago, and I know it's easier to have an independent Southern Cameroon than to be wasting your time with these people. I will never, ever cry more than the bereaved. They put themselves in that position. It is their culture. They should fight their fight, and let us fight our own fight.
John, if you want to make the last point on this, go ahead.
No one could say it better. Comrade Alex, if you were standing by me here, I'm very convinced I would have given you one. You know what I mean. No, but don't worry. When we get back home, I'll invite you over to Mogamo, where you taste some beautiful food. The wine of life.
Alex, if I may ask, if another great national dialogue was to be convened tomorrow in Yaoundé, will you be back there?
Chris,
Chris, you are biting.
Because your narrative has
let me
changed.
answer you, Chris.
Leave Alex alone.
Chris, I will answer. I love the question. I love the question. Do you know why?
No.
These people, they call another national dialogue. It's going to make your point. Listen, these people. If you ask
When
Mr.
you
Biya,
made your point, the faith will listen
let
to you
me tell
is
you
almost
something.
10
Let me
years
tell you
after.
how they operate. Let me tell you how they operate. If you ask Mr. Biya, this European country, because it was sponsored by the Europeans. If you ask Mr. Biya, why don't you call these people? Mr. Biya said, I invited them, they refused to come. What do you want me to do? The Europeans, they keep quiet. That is the game. It was a game. Don't give them a chance. I knew nothing will happen, but I go there. I cannot change the thing alone. I struggle to put my hand.
Comrade Alex, you can go there, but I can't.
I know what you're saying, because do you know why? I play with their constitution. I read their law. If they catch me, listen, if I go to Cameroon, you arrest me. You have to, I'm a lawyer in this country. Just my law society will fight. Just that law, forget the country. They will say, what have I done? I saw some people that were saying I burned the flag. In this country, if you burn a flag, the law says it's your personal property. I can buy an American flag and burn it. It's not a crime. So, but you see,
well, but let me go back. Let me go back to the question Chris asked, relative to what in relation to what you said a while ago, and this is what I've always told people too. There is no way, La République du Cameroon will ever go back to the two-state federation. That is future impossible tense. And even those in the opposition are even more virulent against it. Those in the so-called opposition than those in government. You heard Maurice Kamto. Maurice Kamto was clear. He said, le Cameroun a déjà fait son histoire. So they can never go back there. We have absorbed you, we have swallowed you, and we have swallowed you. Stay in our stomach. Let me be very clear here. For those who are daydreamers, France at some point will prefer to let go the Southern Cameroons than have a federal system with the Southern Cameroons, as a standalone. Even a 10-state federation, France will not accept. I'll tell you why. The French are not used to federation. Because if they put in place a federation like federation per se, and then they get natural resources in some places, the French will discover that they may have to start passing through locally elected officials. No, the French need unfettered access to anything they want, any day, anytime, anyhow. And again, while our lawyers were screaming, oh, the Okada law, whether Okada law or Okada law, I know my friend Jeune, who was the president of the Cameroonians, to refer to it as Okada law. You know, when they were complaining against this, they failed to understand something. When the Southern Cameroons, and Comrade Alex is a lawyer, he will not gainsay me here. When the Southern Cameroons joined with La République du Cameroon in 1961, by the time we joined the La République du Cameroon had already signed all their military and economic agreements with France. This means that by the time we're going in a federation, those agreements will not have anything to do with the territory of the Southern Cameroons, unless they had to bring those agreements back to the Federal House of Assembly for those agreements to be jointly ratified by representatives, by elected representatives from both sides. That never happened. And that should already tell you that from the point go, they knew that at some point we just have to absorb these people. And the French knew getting into the territory of the Southern Cameroon to do things with the federation in place was so complicated. That's why when they discovered oil, they had to accelerate. They had to accelerate the abolition of the federal system because of people like the late Honorable Wali Penja, who started talking about oil. Was it Lipenja or whoever was talking about oil? Yeah, who started talking about oil? The oil is coming from oil, and they just say oil. Who are you to talk about oil? So what I want to draw your attention to is we are in a system that believes in maximum centralization because Cameroon only runs on the French model. And so there is no way they will ever want to backpedal in one way or the other. That can't happen. So you see, they get up in the morning, they discover that their coffers are dry. And they say, now, all major companies everywhere will pay their taxes either in Yaoundé or in Douala, where they have access to the money. They come up quickly with something called Principe de l'unicité de la caisse. They have to gather all the money. Next day, they discover that things are not even going. They now tell the local councils that even the council in Wabani, they will now send people from Yaoundé to go and collect market tolls from there and take the money first to Yaoundé. Before, if the council in Wabani wants to, clean even just garbage, they will write to the Ministry of Finance in Yaoundé to request money that was collected from there and taken to Yaoundé. So what kind of system are you? Do you think that what kind of moment do you think they'll ever accept to go back to a system where they have to start respecting some boundaries? That will not happen. And the people of the Southern Cameroon need to understand one thing very clearly. We have decided to stay away from national fights. You noticed that during the post-election violence for the 2025 presidential election, we had very minimal participation of Southern Cameroons. Very few people who refused to heed to advice found themselves in those things. But with the mass of arrests and killings, at least we did not suffer any casualties. Because our people finally understood. And you know why the protest failed? Because the engine, the generator that usually made such protests to have meaning, to make some sense, was not there. Was the Southern Cameroons. So when you are yoked with a people who don't even know their left from their right and all of those things, every kind of bad thing will happen to you. So you cannot talk about rights in those kind of systems. And then again, Comrade Alex, to your point, the easiest thing for us to achieve is independence again, not just because it is, very easy to, achieve, but that is what we can clearly, very easily lay claims to. Look at 9 years getting to 10 with a bloody conflict ongoing, with thousands of people dying, including thousands of men and women in uniform. The Parliament of La République du Cameroon had never found 30 minutes to discuss this issue. It is last year that Honorable O.C. Joshua was saying, I think it is now time for us to discuss this thing in Parliament. Bala will not go campaigning for OC because he himself looked at the situation on the ground and he's a realist. He's realistic. If he has ambition and wants to make those ambitions translate into concrete reality, he has to be realistic. So that's why I was running behind Chiruma, because Chiruma was a guy of the time. How did OC end? Because the people of the Southern Cameroons in the vast majority have already turned the page on anything national with La République du Cameroon. That's why our people are not even interested in any of those elections, interested in nothing. And so if we want to put our focus, put our energy in anything, let's put our energy where it will be productive, where it will make some sense. Don't get into fights that don't make any sense at all. And to be candid, we find ourselves bound by agreements that Cameroon entered into with France when we're not part of that country. That should not be. And those are the agreements that are defining the way the country is running. And we're only an appendix. And because we're only an appendix, any kind of thing can happen to us. Let's face it. And let's be realistic about it. The only people who are refusing to see the truth are the daydreamers calling themselves elite. Because I call them daydreamers. Because every day they smash them. And Comrade Alex, I guess when you were in Cameroon for the Grand National Dialogue, you certainly had the opportunity to discuss with some of this so-called elite. And you will notice that when you talk with them in private, they cry more than Ambazonians say. When they cry to you, they torture, the things that they are facing in there, you feel pity for them. I used to see with some of those members of government. You go to their houses on weekend, oh my God, they will tell you how subordinates are making them look useless, stupid. They're even talking, some will even talk until you feel that tears are coming down their cheeks. But the next minute, point them the microphone, they say, oh, Paul Biya is the way, the truth, and the life. This is the ridicule in the whole thing. Since when did men end up being worse than boys?
Gentlemen, thank you. Listen, I have to move on to another subject here. It was a great pleasure having you back and talking about Joshua Osei. I am having an exclusive interview with him on Wednesday live, and I think that is going to be very interesting. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to bringing you back.
Sure. Have a good time. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to take a brief break out, and when I come back, I will take you to another subject of the day that has to do with the controversy of a Seat of Wisdom College in the BLM Fontaine. Please stay put. I'll be right back.
Faster than ever before.
Artificial intelligence is transforming workplaces, creating new opportunities, and reshaping entire industries.
The question is no longer whether AI will impact your career. The question is, will you be ready? At Certified AI Academy, we're helping ordinary people gain extraordinary skills in just 8 weeks.
Unlike many programs that leave you alone with recorded videos, our classes are taught live by experienced instructors.
You will learn practical AI skills you can immediately apply at work, in business, or to launch a new career.
And we don't stop at training. We help with resume development, job search support, and connecting graduates with opportunities.
Many AI jobs today can be performed remotely from anywhere in the world.
Our next session begins July 24th. Seating is limited.
To enroll, text AI to 346-271-0711 or visit certifiedaiacademy.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now I take you to this next story that has that borders around some brewing issues in the BLM, talking about Seat of Wisdom College in the BLM. And I have somebody here who has first-class information as to what has been going on there since the college resumed studies. About, less than a year ago. That was at the beginning of the last school season. But before I bring him in, let me lay this background. Last week on this program, I hosted Reverend Father Constant Leke of Osing Parish in Manu to discuss a subject that has since generated significant public reaction. Today, we return to that conversation, but with sharper focus. Because the real history is not about Osing in Manu. It is about Fontaine and a battle quietly brewing over one of the most historically significant educational institutions in the former southern Cameroon's Seat of Wisdom College. To appreciate the weight of this story, it is important to consider the company this institution keeps, or the class it finds itself. Seat of Wisdom College Fontaine belongs in the same class as Our Lady of Lourdes Bamenda, St. Joseph College Sase, Bishop Rogan College, Sacred Heart College, Queen of the Rosary Okoyong, the landmark missionary colleges that shaped a generation of Southern Cameroonians after independence. Like these other institutions, Seat of Wisdom Fontaine was established in the early post-independence era, founded in 1966 and managed for decades by the Folklore Movement, a Catholic lay organization rooted in Italy. When the Ambazonia conflict shut the school down, the Italian folklore staff departed and never returned. In their absence, two things happened simultaneously. First, reports emerged that a parallel institution bearing the same name or title, Seat of Wisdom Annex, was being quietly established in another village called Mogbin in the Alo area, allegedly with the involvement of politician Paul Tasson in what many interpreted as an attempt to relocate the institution's identity and location into his community, that is Paul Tasson's community, and perhaps lay the groundwork for an eventual moving of the BLM headquarters from Menji to Mogbin. Whether that plan succeeded or collapsed remains debatable. Second, and more consequentially, the folklore movement formally handed management of the original Fontaine campus, Seat of Wisdom campus, to the local folklore community in the area, which has since been running it with support from alumni associations. The school was successfully reopened last year, a milestone my guest today, Terence Atom, former Etoudi president, was instrumental in achieving. But now a new conflict has emerged. The Catholic Diocese of Manfe, which has jurisdiction or Catholic jurisdiction over the Libelem Catholic Diocese, has asserted that Seat of Wisdom is its institution and that it intends to reclaim full ownership and management. The Fontaine community, led by the Fon, disagrees sharply. Their position is direct. The land was given to the folklore movement, not to the Catholic Church. The diocese, they argue, cannot simply walk in and take over. Last week, Reverend Father Constant Laker, himself a Fontaine native, made the case on this program that the diocese holds the rightful claim. The Catholic diocese holds the rightful claim. Many viewers and listeners push back strongly, calling his account misleading and his historical record distorted. I extended Father Laker an invitation to return to the show and engage with the other side of this story. He has not responded. So today, we hear that other side from someone who has been in the room when the decisions were being debated. I am here referring to Terence Atom, who is joining me from Maryland. Terence, great pleasure to have you, sir. Welcome to News Talk.
Thank you so much, Brother Chris, and thanks for having me on a very, very important topic, a subject that really requires hard facts.
I guess you were one of those who listened to my conversation with the Reverend Constant Laker last week on this show, and you happened to pick lots of holes in his narrative. Tell me, give me a brief history of Seat of Wisdom College Fontaine, as you know it, you being the former Etoudi president.
Yeah, so again, thank you for having me. And again, just to provide some better perspective, I spoke with Father Constance on Tuesday before he came on your show, and I provided clarity and clarification on a lot of some of the issues that in his articles that he published on Facebook that I found wanting of truth, and he did appreciate the information that I was providing to him, and he actually acknowledged and then told me he was gonna publish a third article to correct some of the misinformation that he had provided. And I think from my conversations with him, I believe the misinformation was not intentional. I also, usually it is important to caution people to avoid getting into a subject matter that they really do not have the facts. And if they want to engage in such a discussion, they need to find out the truth and hard facts about this matter. The other thing is, I'm going to talk a little bit about, lay the stage about my background, so that people can understand and appreciate the information that I have. I am an ex-student of Seat of Wisdom College of the 22nd batch, and I have 3 other siblings, direct siblings who have attended Seat of Wisdom College. My father has also been a PTA chairman for Seat of Wisdom, and I also have a family priest who also comes out of that mold of Seat of Wisdom. So I would also say almost, all my siblings are Catholic Christians. So that means we are really in this submission to this arrangement. Sorry. So we actually, in this arrangement, are very deep on both sides, very loyal to the Catholic Church and Manfred Diocese, since we live in Menji, and also with a lot of fidelity to the folklore movement and State of Wisdom. So I just wanted to appreciate that. I've also been the Secretary General for State of Wisdom ex-students in the United States for 8 years. So the entire period when you had this issue going on with Father Bishop Lissinge, 2011, I was the Secretary General and involved in the meetings that were held to try to convince pushback on the takeover intentions of Bishop Lissinge. And so 2011, we met with Bishop Lissinge here in the United States. I coordinated that, and we had a discussion about the takeover
Who is Reverend Lissinge?
So Bishop Lissinge was the Bishop of Mamfe at the time.
Okay.
In 2011, he started the the intention, the effort to take over the college completely from the folklore. So there was a lot of pushback from the local community, both in Cameroon and abroad. And since we were ex-students, very, very active, we met with him to stake our position, and we submitted a letter to him and had a conversation. And he actually promised us that he understands the position of the ex-students and understand how important the folklore is to us, and that he will do everything in his power to negotiate in good faith with the folklore. In 2014, we met again with Bishop Mkee, at the time Bishop of Mamfe, who is the Archbishop. We met with him here when the Legda Convention was taking place, and he was invited in Maryland, and we had a hard talk on this. 2016 again, he came here. We had a conversation on this subject matter at the Resurrection Church here in Maryland. So we are very, very versed with the issue. But let me address the history of the college. I think that is important. So when the folklore arrived Fontem, in people said 1966, but actually the folklore first came to Fontem in 1963. That's when the first came to Fontem. So you had Dr. Lucio and you had Dr. Danilo, and Kiara had sent them to Fontem to engage with the Bishop of Biya Diocese at the time, Bishop Julius Peters, and they were looking at settling in Cameroon. And then consequently, prior to that, the Fon of Fontem, Fondefan, had reached out to the Bishop of Biya requesting for help because the Bangwa community was suffering high infant mortality. Some people say up to 90%. You had a lot of deaths, general mortality in the community, and the Fon and the traditional authorities felt that the Bangwa people were cursed. So they reached out to the bishop for help. And then the bishop traveled to Italy on the Second Vatican Council and had a conversation with Madame Chiara and say, hey, we have these people in my diocese who are really, really suffering, and we, the church, we are not in a position to help. And at the time, Fontem was an offshoot under Mbeta parish. So Fontem was an outstation. So there was Catholic mission in Belo, just a small outstation. So the diocese really was not doing much. What they had engaged then from 1922 were primary schools, Catholic primary schools. And I think you had a lot of Bangwa students in Sase who were brilliant. And that also was, had a need, started creating a need for a school to be in Fontem. So after that council, that conversation with Kiara sent these three folklorinos to Cameroon, 63, sorry. And these records, we have peeled this up from Dr. Lucio's book. Dr. Lucio, it's one of the pioneer folklorinos, three pioneer folklorinos who first arrived Fontem. So when they arrived Fontem in 1963, they went to the Fons Palace, Fontem de Fang at the time, and started looking for where to situate the movement, the folklorist structures. And first, they had two particular requests. The people had two particular requests. The Fon of Fontem Fon de Fang had made two initial requests to Madame Kiara. The first one was healthcare because people were dying, and the second one was a college because a lot of Bangwa children who were very intelligent were attending college in Sase. And the Fon and the local leaders thought that that distance, it's just too much to bear, and so they wanted a college on their land. So when the folklorinos arrived Fontem, engaged the Fon, initially they wanted to settle at Azi, and Azi specifically in Jet, because PM Kemchap, who was the prime minister at the time, as you well know, had a lot of influence, was trying to also influence the location where the folklore would eventually locate. But then the folklorinos requested to see the land, to go beyond just Azi. So as people took them around, they then went down and saw Mva, and saw this level land, and then came back to the Fon and said, look, that is we want to settle in Mva. And the Fon kind of really equivocated, resisted, and Julius Peters had to intervene and gave the Fon almost some sort of an ultimatum for 2 days and say, look, Your Majesty, you need to get back to me and tell me clearly where you want the folklore to settle. And that's how the folklore eventually settled in Mva. Now, so
let's get this right from the former narrative from the Reverend Father. So you are saying by 1966, Sitawazan was already operational?
No. So the folklore came to Fontem 1963 to do prospection, to figure out land, right? Where they could settle. So once they then decided to settle, 1965, they got into more conversations with the bishop, and the bishop then issued an authorization for folklore to come formally and settle. In 1966, Sitawism was established, Maryhead was established. So, to look at ownership, and we can all, I think there's common sense here too. The diocese was already operating in the area since 1922, around that time. But they had not created a school for all those years, so that there is some logic to this. When folklore came...
Because of time constraints, let's do this. When Sitawism was created, 1965, according to you, was it managed by the diocese in Boya then, or managed by the folklore movement?
So that's what I wanted to get into. So the Sitawism was created in 1966, but the folklore had authorization to operate in Fontem 1965, and then they came to Fontem 1966 officially to start their operation. So in 1966, when Sitawism was created, Kiara had a conversation with the Bishop of Boya, right? And said, I would like a college, but I don't have the manpower. Remember, these were missionaries group, these were missionaries. So they had just come with doctors. They didn't have teachers. So Kiera had conversations with the bishop and say, hey, we would like to create a college, we would like to have a college. And the bishop, remember, these are gentlemen's agreements. The bishop was a white person operating with another white person, another European. So they were operating in terms of trust, right? Because we've also found that in books that were written by the folklore movement. So when they had these conversations, that the folklore does not have the manpower, the teaching manpower. So they would they moved the diocese to start the school. The diocese obtained the authorization from the ministry. And the reason this is, it's very important for everybody to note. At the time, the folklore did not have a legal personality. They were operating as a missionary group under the church. Just like all of us, most of us in America who are American citizens, we buy assets, we do transactions in Cameroon through our family members, through our parents, and through very trustful friends. So that is how it happened. So when Kiera told the bishop that they would like a school, the bishop obtained the authorization from the government, and then they had an understanding that the bishop would pull pull a teacher from Sase, and that was Father Kenner, who was sent as the first principal to come and start. Why the folklore is then trying to find personnel, train personnel to be able to continue the college. At the time, the folklore was building the hospital. That's why the history of Setowism is tied to the history of the hospital. It's the same year, and that's no coincidence. So once the hospital was built, Setowism was operating first by Father Cunningham, and then not less than within a year, Father Cunningham fell sick, and then had to leave, and then the bishop sent Father Stumper. Now, by 1972, the folklore now had teachers who have been trained by the diocese, because remember, this is an Italian organization, right? They needed capacity building. So they had teachers that have been trained. They also brought in more teachers. That's when Miss Anne then took over as the principal in 1972. And from then, the folklore has run the school very successfully without any interference until Manfred Diocese was created. So the problem actually resulted from the creation of Manfred Diocese.
So what is Manfred Diocese demanding, and from who?
Right. So Manfred Diocese wants to take over the college completely.
Okay.
Because, and I've been involved in the conversation because reopening of Setowism, we had a committee that was created. The bishop was in that committee because I have heard rumors that the bishop is dissatisfied that he was not, that the folklore left Fontaine, blah, blah, blah. If the folklore left Fontaine, then they should not have been the hospital hosting 3 priests of Manfred Diocese. And they should not have been a committee that the bishop asked the folklore to put in place, and there was the Catholic Education Secretary sitting in there, and we all planned the reopening of Setowism together with the bishop and the Catholic Education Secretary. So the bishop now wants to take over Setowism, and again, it's not a new story. To people out there, it might be new, right? This is an attempt, an effort that Manfred Diocese has engaged in since 2011. And if the problem is, what is the motivation? I think that should really be what people should be asking themselves. Why does Manfred Diocese insist to take over a school that is being run so well, exceptionally well, by another religious movement that has been there? We are celebrating 60 years of the folklore in Fontaine this year. So I think that is really what people should be asking. And I would tell you that if you look at each time that this matter came up and the administrators of the school were summoned to Manfi, there was always the issue of money. They said the students that the folklore is not sending money to Manfi, and they told the folklore, but if you're saying you're not making profit, because you, the folklore, are stating that you came to Fontem to help the Bangwaman, and you really want to keep the tuition low so that this college is accessible and affordable. You're spending so much on food. Why not reduce the amount of food you're giving to students? Why not even double the enrollment for the school? And the folklore said, well, they don't have enough infrastructure. You cannot increase the enrollment just like that. And then also, if you increase the tuition, you would then be causing poor families not to have access to quality education. You've been basically writing off a lot of students. So I think this is really the crux of the matter. The diocese, granted, might have some little concerns about, there are a little bit of lapses here and there, but lapses occur everywhere, right? The other Catholic schools, I don't know how many schools that can compete with Sidawism when it comes to morality, moral behavior, and raising young kids in a way that in the Christian faith, in a way the church will appreciate. I think the folklore has done a phenomenal job. So whatever reasons might be advanced are probably just a smoke screen to use as justification to take over the school because of money. Now, the other thing is the relationship between the folklore, the church, and the community has always been a tripartite.
Let me add, before you get there, for the time that the folklore was still there, of course, they are still there, but talking about the local folklore community. But why the Italian missionaries were still there, managing seat of wisdom, was the diocese or the Catholic Church, the diocese from Biya. Were they contributing anything to the day-to-day management of the college?
The folklore has never contributed a dime for the
diocese, you mean?
The diocese has never contributed a dime. They have never put up any structure. Remember, the diocese was really running the school when it was in Bel Air, right? Then the school moved to its current location in 1972. The folklore has constructed the school, and that school looks like a university. And a lot of people always ask us, why is it that you have a secondary school so good? Because it's a folklore. So the diocese has never contributed a dime. But not only that, Mr. Chris, think about this. At the time when our people were down, when they were facing the most challenge in their lives since the time we had the epidemic in 1966, when the folklore came to help to save us. At this time, when the war had ravaged the place, people were poor, people could not afford to pay education, and we were struggling to reopen the school, and the education secretary was in that committee. We're trying to help the school to reopen. The diocese did not contribute money. Not only that, it is very painful to me in particular, because we found out recently that even subventions for the school, while we're struggling to raise funds, we had people in Cameroon, mothers, give 10,000 francs. We had mothers doing babysitting here, give $10 just to try to give education, give citizen a chance, let the school reopen. At this same time, the diocese was collecting subventions. And these are subventions for people who don't know.
They were collecting subventions from who?
From the government. from the government from Yaoundé, the government of Cameroon. And subventions are basically grants that are given to all schools. It's a constitutional mandate by the state to assist and promote the education of their youths, of their children. So those subventions.
So they were collecting subventions on behalf of Seed of Wisdom?
Exactly. They were collecting subventions on behalf of Seed of Wisdom. But the point I'm trying to make is it's a question of morality, of deep morality. Sometimes you can take money and use and say people don't need it. You can take somebody's money and then use and claim that they didn't need it. But not at the time when the person needs that money the most. So it gets into the morality of the diocese, because a lot of people sacrifice to see that school came back to light, and to come and discover that diocese.
When you reopened the school with the help of Le Kudo, Le BLM Culture, and is it Le BLM? Or Le Bank
Le Bank Culture. Yeah, so let me put that. Let me say that I don't want us to bring. I don't want to rob Paul to pay Peter, right?
Le Bank
we want to state that
Development Association.
So no. Let me state that. Let me clarify that, because we don't want people to feel robbed. So the reopening of Seed of Wisdom was basically a very collaborative process. Now, I was leading that process, trying to, as a project manager, coordinating and making sure that it works, right? So it was Lekudu USA, Lekudu in the United States, and we also had Sweza United States, and we had Sweza in Cameroon, and we had the different communities, and we had a lot of ex-students. So this was, even though Lekudu USA was spearheading and coordinating, we did not even see it as our project. Remember, even though I was CEO, I was initiating a lot of these things as a Swezan, not really as CEO, because this is my school, right? But I took the opportunity as a bridge builder to bring everybody together, and we opened the school. So the funding really came.
My question is, did the diocese come in to contribute anything for the reopening of the school?
No, zero, yet.
And after you got the school reopened, what is the diocese saying to you?
What we are only hearing is takeover. They want to take over the school. I mean, that's basically it. And it really shocks me, because the bishop has been, we have really been updating the bishop, and the folklore has been the one running this school right from the beginning. All what we did was to facilitate and support the folklore, because Mr. Chris, think about it. We have matured as a community. We're no longer babies, the babies that the folklore came and was babysitting us. We're no longer the babies that the Catholic Church probably thought we were, right? We have matured. You have a lot of Bangwa community members all over the world. You have them in high places. You have them in the folklore movement. We have Professor Nkafu in the folklore movement in Rome, a professor. Inside the folklore, we have Marcelos, who is also a Bangwa man, who is a head of the folklore for Cameroon and part of West Africa. Think about it. So this idea to say the folklore left Fontem, no, the folklore downgraded. They kind of removed some of those who were the target, right, of the Amber Boys, and left those who were less vulnerable, who are members of the movement, right? Because we keep saying the local folklore. No, the point person for the project to reopen Seed of Wisdom was Marcelos, was the head of folklore in Douala. In Douala. So this is not local folklore. This is a folklore entire infrastructure. And we also traveled to Rome, right? We went to Rome to make the case, because the folklore was reluctant because of the security situation. We had a delegation go to Rome to plead, and they agreed, and this school, and we supported them to reopen the school. We've never run the school. That school has been run, during the after the crisis, or during this last 4 years, has been managed exclusively by the folklore.
Now, besides Seed of Wisdom College, the folklore also operated the Mariapolis Center that you find on your screen there. They also manage this Mary Health of Africa Hospital that you find on your screen. The diocese or the Catholic Church have anything to do with these other institutions? Were they collecting funds from the institution? Why Citowism was in operations run directly from Rome?
No, the diocese has never had. I mean, the folklore is a very independent. If you look at the documents, they are very independent. They are autonomous, but they then are under the framework and the canopy of the church. They have to adhere to the church to the Catholic Church, because based on canon law, they are a congregation under the Catholic Church. But their financial well-being and all of that, they raise their money, run their patient. The hospital has been, it's a folkloric thing. The carpentry workshop, it's folkloric. They had oil mill. They had a lot of things.
Oil mill, they had a carpentry workshop. They had a mechanic workshop. And
exactly.
A hospital.
And they also, you might not know this, the folklore constructed the church in Menji. They constructed the Catholic Church in Fonjumeto. The white bishop, as I would say, Julius Peters. And this is the thing we have figured out, that Julius Peters...
And this is the lady who planted Citowism, am I correct?
Yes, this is Chiara Lubick, the head of the folklore, who brought folklore to Cameroon, the founder of folklore. She is deceased, and she's in the process, hopefully, for canonization to become a saint. But when we also, again, when Julius Peters was bishop, so I obtained a document from the diocese, from some of, we all have family members who are priests, we have friends who are priests. So I obtained the original document, the first agreement and authorization to the folklore that was signed by Julius, the Bishop of Biya, the then Bishop of Biya. And this is June 1966. Bishop's house. It says, Miss Chiara.
Listen, because of time, let's not go back to that history. The question I would like to ask you is, if the diocese should take over Seat of Wisdom, does it also mean they take over Mariapolis, they take over the hospital, they take over the oil mill, every infrastructure put out there by the folklore, including the land?
Yes, because what we've also discovered is the diocese has signed a document stating that they can ask the folklore to leave Fontem. And if they ask the folklore to leave Fontem, they'll take over their property. And they said if the folklore is living on its own volition, they'll take over their property. So what you see the diocese has done is they have set a goal and they are working towards that goal. Because first they took the church of Menji, took the church of Fonjumeto, constructed by folklore, took it away from the folklore, and now they want to take over Citowism. And once they are done with Citowism, right, it's mission creep. They're going to go to the next level, right? And that's why you hear them saying the folklore left Fontem, because in that document, they have laid down a trigger, and they are very, they're very good with this. The African church is almost like Paul Biya simply operates in Cameroon. So they have forced the folklore to sign some documents, and they have this trigger. They are just triggering, and they want to take over. Their goal is really to push the folklore out, because we've also heard from priests in Manfred Diocese that Manfred Diocese is poor, and they see the money in Lebanon, in Fontem. That's where the money is. So that is really what is at play here. It's not anything about religiosity, Christianity. No, it's about money.
What do you have to say about this Seat of Wisdom Annex that was allegedly opened in the Mombin? Was that true? Or because Reverend constantly call it, is it St. Henry or St. Francis? One of those names, Skoda, it has nothing to do with Seat of Wisdom.
So, again, I would say if someone does not have the facts, they shouldn't venture into what they don't know. So, we got information, reliable information, that they had created Citowism Annex in Mongbin. And again, Mr. Chris, I heard you talk about Paul Tassong. I don't think Minister Tassong had anything to do with this, based on our finding. because the person who was managing that school, that new school that was created, was a Catholic priest. And that's why the name of the school was later, and the bishop is because we confronted the bishop, Bishop Aloysius Fondong, and he said he's going to change the name, and he instructed them to change the name, and that's why they gave it a new name, St. Sebastian. So it's a fact that they attempted to steal the name of Seat of Wisdom and create Seat of Wisdom and Next Day, and we said no, you can only have one Seat of Wisdom. You can't have Seat of Wisdom and Next in the same division. But you know, yeah.
So assuming that the diocese takes over Seat of Wisdom and allow the other amenities to be managed by the folklore, the Cameroon branch of the folklore movement. I'm talking here of the hospital, the carpentry workshop, the Maria Police and stuff. What happened to the income that is generated from these activities?
So first of all, I don't think that is even a plausible option here, because there's a tripartite arrangement that has survived for this is the 60th year, right? Where the community, the diocese, and the folklore have worked together to promote development and to make sure Seat of Wisdom survives. So I don't think it would even be fair and be tolerated by the community that has both the land, but also the investment, not just land, but also has pumped in a lot of money into Seat of Wisdom, and also has the children. So I think what we are advocating here, because the bishop again is our brother, he's also a family relation to me. I think it is important for dialogue to prevail and let the status quo be maintained, because as you seem to you seem to suggest with your question, Mr. Chris, that there is a good reason for that the diocese is acting in good faith. I think we are Christians of the diocese. We're not just, because I think that is where there's miscalculation. The local population, they are also Christians. The bishop is a chief shepherd. The priests are leaders, they are leaders in their own merit in church. But the church is an institution with members, Christians. And overwhelming percentage of the Christians are saying no. They do not want the diocese to come and take over Seat of Wisdom, because first of all, their motivation, it's not justified. Their intentions are negative intentions that will have an impact on the community's children, because then it means tuition will be increased. It means that the folklore will be displaced, and the folklore is us, right? The folklore is going nowhere. So if they have this concept that, oh, the folklore left, or the folklore is leaving, the folklore is going nowhere. The folklore has built capacity locally and nationally, that they have members, their members who are folklorinos and who have to manage folklore structures. So no, I don't think there is any avenue where the Bangwa people would accept the bishop to take over. The bishop, I mean, it's very surprising, because Bishop Lisenge engaged the community. Archbishop Kee, I have told you how many times we met with Lisenge and Archbishop Kee. They engage the community. But surprisingly, Bishop Aloysius, who is a brother, has really dismissed the community. He has made statements like, oh, the community should prove that this is their school. That's beside the point. This is not even about ownership. I mean, you can't make church, has the church become so property oriented that they forget what Christianity is all about? It's not even about ownership. We just really want to work together with the bishop and make sure that that school is being run well, because there's a proof of concept that the folklore has been the best thing that ever happened to that community. And I think it would be very foolish of the community to give that up and say, oh, now they should bring a new person. They always say in English, do not break what is working, right? If something is not working, don't try to fix it. So if it's not working, then you can fix it, but it's working perfectly well. The folklore has also invested a lot of money to rehabilitate tourism and rehabilitate its structures. These are resources that if we did not have the folklore, Mr. Chris, that school would be ruined. If we didn't have the folklore and it was handed to the diocese, that school would be dilapidated, because you'll be surprised. The community, the Catholic primary school in Menji, we helped to open it.
Let me ask you, if they are running Our Lady of Lords in Bamenda, that really good, and running Sacred Heart really good, running Sase really good, why would they take Seat of Wisdom and not run it good equally? Or you are just concerned with the increased fees they will be asking?
No. I think you can go to, you see, you have it, you mixing apples and oranges, in the sense that you talk about schools that are in big cities, right?
Yeah.
And have a certain different dynamic, and a school in a suburb, right, where there's no money. The church itself is struggling. Okay, I can tell you that the church is struggling. I've been frontline with development in the BLM division, and I have mobilized resources to support the church in Menji. The Catholic school in Menji, we had to, Etoudi USA had to send money to the priest to reopen that school, 400,000, and we had to go then mobilize resources, about 3.5 million every year, to pay the teachers. So it's not like you think the money, the church thinks that they're gonna, it's not easy to run the school. I think they are very interested in money, but they think it's easy. But for Claria has survived, and there are kids who have been able to attend to the wisdom from very poor homes, because for Claria has sponsored them free. They have just had, some of them just had to do manual labor, and the movement has lobbied for sponsors from Europe to pay those tuitions. So, it is just illogical for any human being to engage in self-inflicted wounds, right? For the community to really know that the diocese cannot run this school as much as better than, even near what the folklore is doing, to say, and it's also about fairness, and also about the folklore, because the folklore came to Fontaine to teach people how to love, right? The motto of Wisdom, if this school was really founded by the diocese, how come the motto of Wisdom, it's the same motto for the folklore movement, which is older? The folklore movement is older than Wisdom, but the motto for the folklore movement is the same motto for Wisdom. Our Lady Wisdom College, the name, Our Lady Wisdom College. You know the name of the former name for the folklore, Mr. Chris? No. It is Work of Mary. So Our Lady is Mary, the Work of Mary. So you can see where the ideas for Wisdom came, the name, because as I said, these white Europeans were acting in trust. They were like family. They were having conversations and agreeing on stuff, right? And you can see, as I was telling you about the original document that forms a preamble for every other agreement that the Diocese of Manfred has written by Julius Peters. It states there that Julius Peters, the then Bishop of Biya, is inviting the folklore, Madame Kiera, to come and establish a city in Fontaine on 100 hectares of land given to them by the people of Fontaine, already in possession of the folklore. And that he authorizes them to hereby establish a center on the pattern of the existing center of Lopiano, and grants them all the sovereignty and rights and privileges that they might find necessary. So the white bishop gave a certain level of autonomy to the folklore. It is just that our brothers have come now, and it's all about money now, and they want to chip away, and that's why you see gradually they are not doing 100%. They take a little bit here, they take a little bit here, but at the expense of the local population. And the local population are Christians. They are also folklore members.
Talking about land, here one of the concerns out there is if the diocese should come in, take a Seat of Wisdom take the hospital and everything that Focolare has managed. It means they are also taking all of these 100 acres of land given to the movement by the natives. That is one. Is it one of the worries?
You definitely think that should not be one of our worries.
I'm asking.
Yeah. So I think we are moving. We're talking too much about assets here. I think this is far bigger than assets, right?
So
this
what
is
is
about
bigger than the assets? I know you've mentioned the fact that
it's a way of life.
You mentioned the fact that the church just want money, just want to make money out of the school and perhaps out of those other institutions like the hospital and stuff, but you also have the land. My point is, listen, the diocese comes in and take over management of Citowism and maybe those other institutions. They're not taking the land to Manfe, they're not taking the infrastructure to Manfe. For as long as they maintain the institutions and keep on developing the area, what is the problem there?
Okay, the problem
now,
there
I'm
is
being
that
the devil's advocate here.
Right, you being a devil's advocate. The question is that the Focolare has done so much to develop the place, and the diocese taking over stuff means they're pushing out the Focolare, right? And we need to understand here that the people of the Bangwa people have a deep relationship with the movement, with the Focolare movement, right? That they're not going to give up. They are surviving today because of the Focolare movement. So, and they have benefited from the Focolare movement, and they continue to benefit. So they're not, if you ask them, you're asking them to make an opportunity cost, right? They're not willing to make any opportunity cost there, right? They are willing to say, we are part of the Catholic Church. We want the diocese to be with us as we've been. We also want the Focolare to be with us, and we want things to be managed the way they have been managed, right? Because the question is that why is the diocese insisting to come take over these structures? That is really the question. It doesn't mean that because they are proprietors for the school, they obtain the school, and then, they can just come and yank the school from somebody. No, we're saying it doesn't work like that.
All right. Let me open the phone lines just in case somebody has a question on this subject. They can call in and ask a question or make a contribution. Put the phone line on the screen, please. All right. So, at the moment, what do you think, what do you and the Fontaine community think is the right solution to this crisis?
I think it's what has always prevailed, which is dialogue and understanding.
What do you expect to emerge from this dialogue?
Yeah, so what we expect to emerge from this dialogue is an understanding, because we know the bishop is new, and when people are new, they also need some time to educate themselves. So we're hoping that the bishop must have learned a lot, just like a lot of other people who are new to this have learned a lot. And that if the bishop has any concerns, then he should put those concerns on the table and resolve them with the Focolare amicably, right? It does not require him trying to take over the school, take over management of the school from the Focolare. The Focolare and the community and the diocese would always be together. They are one big family. So I think the bishop needs to understand that. And the bishop also needs to recognize what he's doing here. This is a very, very delicate moment for a people who have gone through a lot, for the bishop to bring this type of disorder and challenge to the people at the time the people are basically trying to recover. It is very inhumane and very insensitive to do that. So I think that is a very important point. So we need the bishop to really sit out. And
all right, let's get to this caller here. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello, Comrade Chris.
Hello, sir. Where are you calling from?
I'm Kenneth calling from Canada.
Okay, you are live. What is your contribution, sir?
Yes, I'm also a Swazan, and it is very, very sad to see my former school going through what it is going through. The diocese trying to take over Seat of Wisdom, there's no guarantee that they will not mismanage it as they have mismanaged Okoyong and the other schools. So in this case, I would strongly advise that let the community, probably they need some kind of a violent way to use to seek the church to go away from Seat of Wisdom, Mary Health. If somebody was to advise me, I would say let this hand over this thing to our local boys. If you use the Red Dragon, they will do if you hand this thing to the Red Dragon will chase them away. That's just my humble contribution here.
The church is in Manfe. You mean the Red Dragons should go to Manfe and chase them out of Manfe, or what do you mean?
They chase them. No, not out of Manfe. They are coming to Lialem. That is what I mean. We don't have anything to do with Manfe. They are coming to BLM to take our school away, to take our Mary Health away.
All right.
That is why I'm sure. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm okay. I was going to ask my guests here if the diocese has anything to do with the management of Seat of Wisdom at this moment.
No, they don't.
No.
But again, let me clarify. The school has always operated in very, under the diocese in Biya. There was no problem. Biya the diocese in Biya, sometimes, the bishop would come to Seat of Wisdom, and they would send some teachers sometimes, and then they would agree with Seat of Wisdom when they are holding interviews. So the diocese has always played that supervisory role, right? And the folklore has always worked with the diocese because the folklore is part of the church. I don't know. I don't understand really the motivation here, because when we're under Biya, when it was under Biya diocese, there was no problem. So I guess we need to figure out how to also assist Manfe diocese to make some money. And that's why when the bishop came here, I had a conversation with the bishop that, look, maybe we can, the diocese of Manfe, could advocate, negotiate, figure out a way to have a farm in Fontam where the diocese will run the farm, and then all the money that we're using to buy food, that Seat of Wisdom, the folklore is using to buy food for Seat of Wisdom, that food could be purchased from the diocesan farm. And that way you then have income going, some sort of a revolving door, income going back to the diocese. But I don't think they are interested in a very honest arrangement like that. They want power, they want control, they want money.
All right. Listen, Terence, we will probably still get back to this issue in the future. Let's see how it goes, and then we come back to it.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure having you, sir. I look forward to having you back when, in case there is any development, just let me know. We will discuss it.
Right. Oh. And yeah, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, so we're done, right? Or if I can make a last statement.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So I think, the folklore is very opaque. They don't give us information. But there has been some movement. I think we have seen the nuncio, a delegation of ex-students led by the president of the alumni in Cameroon has gone and met.
Hold on a second there. Hello.
So I think, the folklore is
hello.
They don't give us information.
Hello.
We have seen the nuncio, a delegation of ex-students led by the president of the.
Apparently, this guy is listening to his television and not to his phone when he calls. Go on, please.
Right. So the president general of the ex-students alumni group, Swirl in Cameroon, has gone to Yaoundé, has met with the nuncio, has met with the Archbishop, Bishop Nkee, and the community delegation has also written to the nuncio. The nuncio is kind of the head of the Roman Catholic Church in Cameroon, right?
Right.
So we feel like it is better administratively to have a dialogue and get some of those senior people understand what the problem is, so that they can, they can have a discussion and advise our brother, the Bishop of Mamfe. So I think my understanding is that initially they wanted to take over the school, and that they probably now are looking at they are probably giving that up, and they want to look at being more intrusive into controlling management, and that means using the back door to come in. But the other important aspect that has also been revealing is that when the community went to the nuncio very interestingly said, wait a minute, that it's very important to look at the original intent. That in canon law, what was the original intent? When the Bangwa people gave their land, and when they accepted the folklore, and when they contributed in constructing the hospital and the school, what was their original intent? And to get to that original intent, because he says, the nuncio, the head of the Catholic Church in Cameroon, says that in canon law, that original intent supersedes every other thing. So when you look at, we have looked at the lands document, we understand the church our people were very ignorant and they figured out a way to do land title because folklore had not gotten, recognition yet. But they started doing those land titles in 1990, and folklore obtained recognition, legal recognition, a presidential decree recognizing them in 1992. But the diocese still went ahead and established land titles in 1998 under them. And then Archbishop Nkee, when he was Bishop of Mamfe, went back and changed the agreement, updated the agreement, and did separation of property and returned some of this property back to the folklore movement. So this tells you that even the diocese is recognizing that the folklore movement today is a legal personality, and based on canon law, they can own property. There is a lot of undoing that needs to happen to correct some of these things that happened in the past. The local community is also understanding. So the land of citizen was given by Mbekem's family, and we have also secured documents that was signed by the folklore doctors. So it was given to the folklore, not to the diocese. So you have a lot of these intrigues that we're discovering now it needs to be corrected.
All right. Well, again, let me know if there are new developments, and we will look into it. For now, let's call it a day, and I look forward to having you again.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Okay.
I have this information. I want to. Hello.
Hello. I am live on TV, sir. I don't know whether you are calling to
Yes, I'm following you up on TV.
Okay. And what is on your mind, sir?
State of Wisdom College content.
Okay. What about it?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I'm calling from Alaska, USA.
Okay. What is your contribution?
Okay. I'm grateful to Terence Atem.
Okay.
Okay. It is. I appreciate the young man who has spoken on the problems of State of Wisdom. I agree to a large extent.
Okay. And where don't you agree?
But I want to say that with the opening of Seed of Wisdom, we need to rectify a number of things. Yes. What do you want to say that the Catholic Church, the Bishop of Biya didn't play a vital role in opening the college?
I don't think he said so. I don't think he said so. I don't think he said so. I don't think he's. Hold on, so that we don't repeat this. He did not say that. In fact, he said. Can you hear me?
Okay, listen.
Go on. Hello?
The bishop opened the college in 1966, and there were 42 students. Among the 42 students, I was one of the students. Yes, and first sent the Mihi fathers who were already available and adapted to teaching in schools in the southern Cameroons. That is why Father Cunningham, G.F. Cunningham, had to go to Swanton when he was already going on retirement. He accepted to go, and then he opened it with a seasoned Cameroon educationist, Dr. Atem.
Okay. All right, listen, we hear you.
And opened the college.
Yes, listen.
And then he ran the college.
Hello?
For 2 years when we were still in Bel Air.
Hello?
And then thereafter he was ill.
Hello?
And went off. Yes.
Sorry, listen. Our time is up. Our time is up, and I think you are not saying anything much different from what.
When the college was to move to.
Sorry, our time is up. We cannot continue, and thank you for the call. I think you are not saying anything much different from what our guest was saying here. I'd like to thank every one of you who tuned in tonight. I look forward to coming back again on Wednesday with SDF Chairman Joshua Osi. Stay put stay put for Wednesday. All right.
Have you noticed? The world is changing faster than ever before.
Artificial intelligence is transforming workplaces, creating new opportunities, and reshaping entire industries.
The question is no longer whether AI will impact your career. The question is, will you be ready? At Certified AI Academy, we're helping ordinary people gain extraordinary skills in just 8 weeks.
Unlike many programs that leave you alone with recorded videos, our classes are taught live by experienced instructors.
You will learn practical AI skills you can immediately apply at work, in business, or to launch a new career.
And we don't stop at training. We help with resume development, job search support, and connecting graduates with opportunities.
Many AI jobs today can be performed remotely from anywhere in the world.
Our next session begins July 24th. Seating is limited.
To enroll, text AI to 346-271-0711 or visit certifiedaiacademy.com.